I want you to just picture a scenario for a moment. It's a situation that I think anyone who's ever worked in business, has nightmares about.
Mm.
You've just finished a marathon sales process. I'm talking weeks, maybe months of effort. You've done the demos, you've answered all the frantic late-night emails, you've charmed the key contact.
The buyer.
The buyer, exactly. And he gives you the verbal yes.
Yeah.
You hang up the phone, you're high-fiving your team, maybe you're even, mentally spending that commission check.
It feels like the finish line, doesn't it? Like you've done the work, you got the yes.
It does. But here's the catch, and this is the really terrifying part of the source material we're looking at today. The race isn't over. Not even close. In fact, the hardest lap is just starting.
Yeah.
Because now, that buyer, he has to walk into a boardroom you are not invited to. He has to stand in front of a skeptical CFO or a terrifying board of directors, and he has to sell your solution.
Without you there to help, that's the crucial variable.
Right. You can't handle the objections. You can't turn the charm. You can't clarify a misunderstanding. You are relying entirely on someone else's memory and confidence to save your deal.
Mm.
So the question is, did you give them enough ammunition to win that fight? Or are they going to walk in there, stutter, and just get shot down?
And if they falter, the deal is dead. It doesn't matter how good your meetings were. It doesn't matter how much they liked you over lunch. If they can't advocate for you when you're not in the room, you lose.
And that is the mission of today's deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
We are stripping away all the fluff of, sales pitches and catchy slogans. We're looking at a stack of research from the Rain Group that fundamentally changes how you think about closing a deal. It's about constructing a bulletproof value proposition.
And we should clarify, when we say value proposition, we aren't talking about marketing buzzwords, not at all. We are talking about the physics of the sale.
The physics of the sale, I like that.
The stakes are incredibly high here. There's a statistic in the research that it really jumps out at you. When they analyzed thousands of deals, they found that the sellers who actually won, the ones who got the signature, were more than twice as likely to have created a clear perception of superior value.
Twice as likely. So this isn't just about having a slightly better product or a slightly lower price.
No, it's about the architecture of the argument you leave behind.
Huh.
Precisely. It's about how that value is constructed in the buyer's mind. And the fascinating thing is, most people are doing it wrong because they don't even know what a value proposition actually is.
I was definitely in that camp, I'll admit it. Reading through their breakdown, I realized I've been misusing the term my entire career. I always thought a value proposition was that, that 30-second elevator pitch you memorize.
Mm-hmm.
You're at a party, someone asks what you do, and you recite. We help companies optimize X to save Y.
You and the rest of the business world. The source material actually points out that even major financial sites like Investopedia, they often conflate two very different things. They confuse the value proposition with a positioning statement.
Okay, so let's draw the line in the sand here. What is the difference? Because they sound pretty similar.
Think of the positioning statement as the wrapper. It's the headline. It's that concise little nugget you use to open a conversation so the person doesn't just stare at you blankly.
Okay.
We help large retailers reduce inventory waste. That's positioning statement. It creates the umbrella for the conversation.
It sets the stage, prevents the awkward silence.
Right. It gets you in the door. But, and this is the critical part, nobody signs a $100,000 contract because of a nice headline. The value proposition is much deeper. It's the specific collection of reasons why a specific buyer chooses to work with you.
Collection of reasons is an interesting phrase.
Yeah.
It implies it's not just one thing. It's not a slogan.
It's a menu. And it changes from person to person. I mean, think about it. What matters to a chief technology officer is going to be completely different from what matters to a VP of sales.
Of course.
The CTO cares about security, integration. The VP of sales cares about speed and revenue. If you're using the same canned script for both, you aren't offering a value proposition, you're just reciting a slogan.
So the positioning statement is the appetizer, but the value proposition is the actual meal.
That's a great way to put it. And if the meal isn't balanced, the customer walks away hungry. The Rain Group uses this framework that I found incredibly useful for visualizing this. They call it the three-legged stool.
I love a good structural metaphor. Makes it easier to diagnose when things go wrong. If a stool falls over, you know something is missing.
Exactly. Imagine your deal, the sale itself, is sitting on a stool. For that deal to stand up, it needs 3 solid legs. If you remove any one of these legs, the stool falls over. The deal is lost.
It isn't mostly one.
No, it's lost.
Let's break down the legs then. What are we building here?
Okay, so leg 1 is resonate. This answers the question, do I need this? Leg 2 is differentiate. Are you the best option? And leg 3 is substantiate. Do I believe you?
Resonate, differentiate, substantiate, need, best option, trust. It sounds simple, but as we dug into the research, it became clear that most sellers are usually strong in one and completely ignoring another.
Constantly. They might be great at explaining what they do, but terrible at explaining why it matters. Or they explain why it matters, but not why they are the best person to do it.
And the worst part is, when they lose the deal, they don't know why. They just think, oh, the price was too high or they ghosted me.
But usually it's because one specific leg was wobbling.
So let's play doctor. Let's do the deep dive into each leg so we can figure out how to spot the cracks in our own arguments. Let's start with leg 1, resonate.
Resonate is all about importance and urgency. It answers 2 specific questions for the buyer: why act and why now?
The why act seems pretty straightforward. If I don't have a problem, I'm not going to pay you to fix it. I don't buy aspirin if I don't have a headache.
True, but this is where sellers get trapped in their own bubble. They focus on their product features. Look at our new dashboard. Look at our processing speed instead of the buyer's reality.
Right.
To resonate, you have to hit a specific frequency. And the research highlights that there are actually 2 frequencies: rational and emotional.
Rational resonance is the spreadsheet stuff, right? The hard numbers.
Correct.
Yeah.
The business case, the ROI. If we implement this, we save $2 million a year, or we reduce compliance risk by 40%. This is the logic the buyer needs to justify the purchase to their boss.
It's the ammo for that boardroom meeting we were talking about.
Exactly, because nobody walks into a board meeting and says, we should spend $1 million because I have a good feeling about this. They need the data.
But the research puts a huge emphasis on the other one, the emotional resonance.
A huge factor. Emotional resonance is about the person, not the company. What does this buyer personally get out of the deal? Maybe it's career advancement. If I bring this vendor in and they crush it, I look like a genius. I get that promotion.
Or the opposite fear. If I don't fix this problem, I'm going to get fired.
Absolutely. Or even simpler, lifestyle. The source explicitly mentions that a buyer might choose a vendor simply because they believe it will reduce their stress. They want to go home at 5 p.m. on a Friday and not worry about the server crashing.
That is incredibly relatable. If a vendor tells me I can save your company 10%, I listen. But if they tell me I can make sure you never have a panic attack on a Sunday night about this project again, I am listening very closely.
That's the magic combination. If you can provide the rational ROI so they can defend the purchase, but hook them with the emotional driver, I want peace of mind, that is when you truly resonate. That gets you on the to-do list.
Okay, so we've resonated. The buyer admits they have a problem and they want to solve it. Now we move to leg 2, differentiate. Why us?
This is the leg where the commodity trap lives.
The commodity trap, that sounds ominous.
It's what happens when the buyer thinks, okay, I need accounting software. There are 10 companies that sell it. They all look the same. I'll just pick the cheapest one.
The race to the bottom.
Exactly. If you can't differentiate, you have 0 pricing power. But, and this is a key distinction in the text, people misunderstand what it means to be different. They think they have to be unique.
Like a snowflake. The only one in the world who does what you do.
Right. And in business, that's very rare. Unless you have a patent on a cure for a disease, you probably have competitors. The research says you don't need to be unique. You just need to be distinct.
What's the practical difference there?
Unique means nobody else does it. Distinct means you are the best choice among the available options for this specific buyer.
Okay, can you give me an example of that?
Sure. Let's say you're a consulting firm. You aren't the only one in the world. But maybe you have an office in the exact city where the buyer is launching a new factory. Or maybe you have a specific methodology for their niche industry that the big generic firms don't have.
So to that buyer, you are distinct. You stand out.
It's about context. You're the best fit for them. You aren't trying to be the best for everyone. And this all ties into scarcity. You want to create the perception that you are not easily replaceable. The source uses a great example of fabricated metal parts. A buyer might think, metal is metal, I'll buy the cheap stuff. They treat it like a commodity.
Until the cheap part breaks and halts the entire production line.
Exactly. They only learn the difference when the assembly line stops and they're losing thousands of dollars an hour. Your job in the differentiation leg is to make them see that risk before they buy.
Okay, so we've resonated, they need it, and we've differentiated, we're the best option. Now comes the third leg, which I suspect is the silent killer of more deals than anything else. Substantiate.
Why trust?
Yes, why trust?
This leg is entirely about risk reduction. You can promise the moon and explain why you're the best astronaut, but if they don't believe the rocket will actually fly, they aren't getting in.
And the source breaks this down into, what, 4 layers of belief? They have to believe in the product, the company, the result, and you, the seller.
And the result is usually the sticking point. Let's go back to that rational ROI. You promised a $2 million cost reduction. Do they actually believe that number is real? Or do they think it's just sales math?
Because if they don't believe it, they are not going to put their reputation on the line to sell it to their boss.
Bingo! That's the risk calculation. If I recommend you and you fail, I look like an idiot. Maybe I get fired. Substantiation is about proving it. Case studies, data, references. You have to lower the perceived risk until it's lower than the perceived reward.
Which brings us to the part of the research I found most practical, the diagnostics, the missing leg matrix.
I love this part. It's like a medical diagnosis for your sales pipeline.
It is. It allows you to look at a stalled deal and figure out exactly why it's stuck based on what the buyer is saying. Let's walk through these because I think everyone listening is going to recognize these situations.
Me too.
Okay, scenario A. You have differentiation, you stand out, and the substantiation, they trust you. But you have weak resonance. What happens?
The buyer says, that's really impressive, but it's not a priority for us right now.
The dreaded, let's touch base in 6 months.
Exactly. You're a nice to have, not a must have. They might trust you completely, but if they don't feel the pain of the problem, they won't cut the check. You haven't made the case for why act.
Okay, scenario B. This is the painful one. You have strong resonance, they really need it. You have substantiation, they trust it works. But you have weak differentiation, you look like everyone else.
They say, we want to do this, but we need you to sharpen your pencil on the price.
Ouch, the price war.
If they want it and they trust it, but they can't tell the difference between you and the 3 other vendors, the only lever left is cost. You become a commodity. If you're constantly fighting on margins, it's almost always a differentiation problem.
That is a huge insight. Don't blame the buyer for being cheap, blame your value prop for being generic.
It's a harsh truth, but a necessary one.
Okay, last one. Scenario C. Strong resonance, strong differentiation, but weak substantiation. They don't quite trust the outcome.
They say, I can't risk it. Or they just go into paralysis.
The no decision.
Or they say, let's do a tiny pilot. Let's trial this in one department. They're trying to minimize the blast radius if things go wrong, even if they love the idea. If the fear of failure is too high, they will freeze.
This is such a powerful tool. You can literally look at your CRM right now. Jones account, stalled on price. Okay, that's a differentiation problem. Smith account, stalled on timeline. That's a resonance problem.
It turns sales from a guessing game into a science. You stop throwing spaghetti at the wall and start reinforcing the specific leg of the stool that's wobbling.
So we know the theory. We know the 3 legs. But the big question is execution. How do you actually deliver this? Because the source warns you explicitly. Do not just vomit all this information at the buyer in one long monologue.
Right. Please don't do that. Don't memorize a paragraph that includes everything and just read it to them. It kills the conversation. It feels scripted, and nobody trusts a script.
So the research suggests a building block approach.
Yes. Think of the value proposition not as a script, but as a set of ingredients, a menu that you keep in your head. The source lists 6. Target customers, business problem, impact, offerings, proof of concept, and distinction.
Okay, so instead of a speech, I'm pulling from these blocks as the conversation flows.
Exactly. Let's role play how this actually sounds.
Okay, I'll be the buyer. You're the seller.
Great. So I'd start with that positioning statement we talked about, just a nugget. We help companies improve their sales performance. If you want your team to sell more, we can help.
Short. Simple. I get it.
And then, and this is key, I stop talking about myself. I pivot to you immediately. That's us in a nutshell. But tell me about your situation. How is your team performing?
And then I start talking. Well, honestly, we're struggling with our expansion into the Asian market. The team is missing all their targets.
Boom. Now I'm listening, and I'm mentally scanning my menu of blocks. I hear Asian market, so I pull out a distinction block. I might say, oh, that's interesting. We actually specialize in cross-cultural negotiation training specifically for the Asian market.
And immediately I'm thinking, oh, wow, they get it. You've differentiated yourself. You aren't just a generic trainer anymore.
Exactly. Then later you might express some doubt. Well, we've tried training before and it didn't stick. Now I pull out a proof of concept block. I understand. We actually worked with Company X who had the same issue, and we saw a 30% sustained lift over 2 years.
Which hits the substantiation leg. You're proving it works.
Yes. You see? I'm weaving the legs. Resonate, differentiate, substantiate naturally into the dialogue. I'm not pitching at you. I'm answering your concerns with these value-laden nuggets.
That feels so much more organic. You're building the stool leg by leg, but it just feels like a chat over coffee.
That is the art of it. By the end of that conversation, you haven't just sold me. You have equipped me. You've given me the story. So when I walk into that boardroom without you, I'm not just saying I liked this guy.
I'm saying we need to act now because we're losing money. That's resonant. These guys are the only experts in the Asian market that's differentiate, and they've done it before for our competitor, that substantiate.
And that is a bulletproof case. That is how you win the deal when you aren't in the room.
It really brings us back to that idea of the mission. Your job isn't to sell the buyer. Your job is to empower the buyer to sell for you.
There's one final layer to this that I think is the most important takeaway from the entire research stack. It's what the authors call the inside job.
The inside joke. Sounds like a heist movie.
In a way, it is. But the person you're stealing from is your own doubt. The text says the seller must make the value case to themselves first.
That's profound. It sounds a bit like therapy.
It is essential. If you can't answer the 4 questions, why act? Why now? Why us? Why trust for yourself? If you don't genuinely believe you are the best option, you cannot expect the buyer to believe it.
You can't fake conviction. Buyers have a very good radar for that.
They really do. If deep down you're thinking, man, our product is kind of the same as the competitors, but more expensive, that micro-doubt will leak out. It will show in your voice your hesitation. You have to do the work to understand your own value before you ever step into the room.
It starts with your own belief. If you don't buy it, they won't.
Exactly. And remember, this is a dynamic process. The value proposition isn't static. It is discovered, not memorized. You have to play detective with every single new lead.
Your mission is to find out which specific combination of keys unlocks that specific buyer. What makes them tick? What makes them worried? What makes them trust?
That's it. It's about curiosity as much as it is about persuasion.
So, for everyone listening, throw away the canned elevator pitch. Stop memorizing generic scripts. Start building the stool. Make sure you resonate, differentiate, and substantiate. And use those diagnostics. If a deal is stalling, check the legs.
Simple framework, massive impact.
I suspect a lot of listeners are going to be staring at their pipelines differently this afternoon, looking for those wobbles. Go fix those broken legs. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
See you next time.